Eskom blames the implementation of stage 6 load shedding on boiler tube leaks at many power stations. Electricity Minister Kgosientsho Ramagopa says they are working on a plan to address the issue after 10 generation units were taken offline in 2 days due to leaks. More units are expected to be brought back into service by Wednesday this week. Well, let's talk about what all of this means with Vally Padayachee, who's a former Eskom executive manager and chairman of the management committee of NRS South Africa. Vally, good evening to you and welcome. This is described as a power station manager's worst nightmare. Just talk to us about what a boiler tube leak is and why it's so devastating.
Good afternoon, Imam, and a very good afternoon to your listeners, and also thank you for inviting me back. Yes, I'm glad this subject matter has been raised, because boiler tube leaks, as you rightfully indicated, is a power station manager, in fact, also an oil refinery manager's worst nightmare. And just to say up front, I've worked in oil refineries and Eskom generation, and worked a lot with boiler tube leak repairs. But maybe just to get the listeners au fait with what a boiler is. A boiler is very simply like a kettle that you have at home where you boil water, except a boiler in a power station or in a refinery is massively big, and they boil water by using coal as the heating source. And of course, when they boil water, the water runs through those tubes, and they run through at massive pressures, and they heat it approximately up to from 1,000 degrees to 1,600 degrees. And just to give you a quick perspective, Imam, a typical modern boiler, like Medupi Kusile, if you had to unravel the tubes in a single unit, it's about 648 Ks. So you can literally, if you had to lay the tubes from here to, on a roadway, you could lay the tubes right from here to Durban and back to Pietermaritzburg.
Yeah.
So that gives you the context. Now, as I say, the water, I mean, very simple here, the water that's pumped through those tubes is done at a very high pressure, and they are heated in a furnace at roughly about 1,000 degrees to 1,600 degrees,
Sure.
in some cases at a high pressure. And there are basically two major processes that take place in a boiler stroke furnace. You have the combustion process at the bottom, where the furnace and the coal burns, and then you have the heat transfer process on the top, where the heat literally gets transferred through the tube walls onto the water and then it gets converted to steam. Now, there are a number of causes, and I'll get back to your question, of tube leaks. But the common causes are being water that gets transmitted or conveyed through the pipes. You eventually get, you will get corrosion if the water treatment is not correct, and then you would get overheating on a particular tube, and then you get what we call commonly fly ash erosion. In other words, the ash that you get from the furnace gets blown through the boiler itself through unwanted air, and it's literally like a sandpaper. So the ash that gets blown,
let me jump straight in there, because and I think we've got the gist of it. It's it's very specific in its task, and it's working at these very, very high temperatures. Am I right in understanding that this type of leak is both predictable and preventable for the reasons that you've just shared with us now? Because the parts involved wear and tear and they erode over time. So it sounds like it's a maintenance issue that one would be able to predict ahead of time.
Yes, you're quite correct in that technically. So you can predict it. I mean, you've got 648 kilometers of tubing, and you've got these various conditions. So you will definitely get a tube leak in the lifetime of a boiler. The trick is, and this is the art of good maintenance, refurbishment, planning, etc., is firstly to prevent a tube leak. So you would take all the necessary steps. But the trick is, and I'm using very simple terms, is when you get a tube leak, is to identify the tube leak almost immediately, because Imam, what's very important is that if you don't arrest or identify the tube leak, because with that enormous heat and pressure, it would also damage the surrounding tubes, right? And so you need to identify that very quickly, and that's why a tube leak is a major event generally in good power stations, because for the reasons I mentioned, you need to arrest it and you need to start the repair procedure. The repair procedure requires very competent and skilled personnel, right from the artisan level, right to the engineer, the project leader, etc. Because, Imam, just to repeat, if you don't arrest the problem, tube leaks are the biggest cause of downtime, biggest cause of availability losses and load losses. Imam.
But again, and I don't know, and again, we're so grateful for the backstory of this because it gives us a deeper understanding. But to go back to the heart of what I was trying to get at, it is something that is predictable and preventable. Is that true?
Yes, it is predictable if you keep. Let me be very simple about it. If you keep historical data, you monitor the trends, etc., etc. And I must make one more point. You know, we try and use technologies to get better at what we do. I'm of the opinion now, given where Eskom is and the need for better decision making, etc., that artificial intelligence, machine language must now come into the decision-making process.
Yeah, and IoT as well, because you could have an early warning system anywhere along that 600 kilometers or 600, you know, however long you said that piece of equipment would be, that would be able to send a message to the engineers and they can get out and sort it. I think the reason we're going here is our question of the day is whether, you know, the public really trusts that the process is in good hands and you know, we are going to see the end of load shedding. Straight after the president's speech, and in fact, while I was still on air, some people were saying, well, we can't watch the speech anymore because we've had load shedding. But by Thursday, Friday, stage 3, because they had to replenish the storage dams, Saturday, stage 6, into the tube leaks, 10 units going down. You know, people are really feeling uncertain about whether there's any credibility with both the electricity minister and those who are in charge of things like transmission. And we're given a variety of different explanations. If it's not the storage dam, then it's these units. It doesn't sound like the situation is in hand. How can the public trust, you know, those who are in charge and the things that they say when it comes to load shedding, given that some of the problems are preventable and there is money that can be used to make sure that the requisite maintenance is done, but it's not? What would you say? I mean, how do we make sense of this as the public? Who should we trust on this?
That's an excellent question, Imam. I think you've got to trust the people that work with this, and I say this with utmost respect. You've got to trust the engineers and the technical people that worked, the generation engineers, not the armchair energy experts and analysts that we've got so many on at the moment. But let me answer it this way in a very professional and technical manner. The tube leaks, as we said, is the biggest nightmare. And if you do not manage tube leak failure and the repairs correctly, then it'll come back to bite you. And the bad news is that we'll have tube leaks again. What we need to have, Imam, is that for tube leaks, and this is from experience, you need an excellent tube leak repair team, right? Now, I know the minister has indicated that they will now be using OEMs. Now, I'm of the opinion that the OEMs of today, the original equipment manufacturers, are not the same that we've had many years ago, because OEMs have also lost a lot of skills and competences. What I think Eskom needs now, given the situation they are, and given that tube leaks is the biggest cause of load losses, is a SWAT team. A tube leak repair SWAT team, even if it means paying a bit more and getting them from overseas, and then deploying those highly skilled people into the different coal-fired stations, especially during the period where our EAF is so low that more and more tube leaks is going to exacerbate that situation, and load shedding will continue. So we may have to take the pain now in terms of some extra costing, but tube leaks is a major area that needs attention.
Vally Padayachee, thank you very much for talking to us tonight, and it's a conversation piece we must pick up on whether we can have and deploy the specialised teams that you describe. He is the NRS Association of South Africa's Management Committee Chair, Vally Padayachee.